New year, new state of the channel address. As always, this is where I talk about what happened last year with my channel, my plans for the future, and where I explain some of the decisions made behind the screen. For those people who don't want to listen to the whole video, then I will give a quick 30-second summary covering all the major points of this video, and then you can just stop watching. I also won't have anything going on visually except for one time when I will just tell you that's the case. So if you want to just go and do laundry or something else while listening to my voice, then go ahead. You're not missing out on anything. So in short, there is a survey, please fill it out. Last year we reached the subscriber count, made a video in a month, hired 2 more people for a total of 4, including myself, and paid some overhead like a Discord moderator. But we didn't launch Patreon because we didn't need the money, and HistoryScope isn't available in audio format yet, which I did plan. So for next year, I want the audio editor to work on that. We will strive for 1 million subscribers, even though that's probably far too optimistic. We'll upgrade the Discord server, cancel the Minecraft server, expand the Space Engineers server, and switch to a different cloud system. In terms of videos, we will try to hire 2 more people, so there are 2 teams working on videos instead of just 1. I would like to hire an admin to take over some of the administrative stuff, get an accountant, and find a lawyer. Before I start, I made a survey for you guys to fill in. I have made a second channel where I will post a video where I go over the results of this year's survey and last year's survey. It takes about 10 minutes to fill in and will help me a lot in understanding my audience better. Particularly the part of my audience which is a fan of my work rather than a casual subscriber. Alright, as usual, let's discuss last year's goals. The first of which was to reach more subscribers than my favorite YouTube channel, Accursed Farms. At first it didn't seem like it would happen. Around February I was still below 300,000 subscribers while Accursed Farms stood at 308,000. But then everything changed when Russia attacked. A bunch of people began watching my breakup of the Soviet Union video, and as of writing this video, HistoryScope is at 344,000 subscribers. So this is absolutely fantastic. And this leads to the next goal, making 1 video per month. And we did it. We finally fucking did it. The time between the last 2 videos were less than a month. This is fantastic news. Now, we won't be able to keep that up all the time, however, we're going for at least 10 videos this year. So expect more content from now on. And it also brings me to the third goal I had, hiring people. At the moment, there are 4 people working on these videos, including myself. We now have a researcher, me as the scriptwriter, an animator, and an audio editor. And ever since the video about why the Nordic countries are so rich, we now have got a full team with each person focusing on their part and thus allowing us to make videos a lot faster. Additionally, I've hired a Discord admin. I also had the intention of paying moderators, but it had one gigantic issue. Some of them are underage. This means that I would have to do a lot of paperwork, or I would need to hire somebody to do all the administration for me. In short, I am registered as self-employed. Anyone working for me isn't actually employed by me. I am their client. In order to hire an underage person, HistoryScope would need to become a different type of legal entity, similar to a private limited business. But this carries extra paperwork with it that I simply cannot do, and I don't have enough money to hire someone to do that for me. The moderators aren't doing a lot of work, just moderating stuff that they were looking at anyway. So it's not like it'd be a proper salary, more of a small compensation for keeping an eye out for abusive comments. So this whole idea became too expensive and time consuming. These laws were meant to protect children from being preyed on by factories or supermarkets, and when they were created, the concept of moderating an online forum didn't exist yet. And the current Dutch government seems to be the kind that waits until something becomes a big problem before doing anything about it, or just outright forget an issue existed in the first place. But alright, that's enough personal politics. On to the next point, Patreon. Originally, I said I would activate Patreon again to pay for all the people, but the algorithm has been very generous so that income wasn't needed at all. And this brings me on to a goal I didn't specify, but I still achieved it. Now that I am more of a medium-sized YouTube channel and I am verified, I get noticed more by other creators as well. I sometimes leave comments on other channels when I feel like I've got something interesting or funny to add. And some of my favorite YouTubers have started noticing me. Giant Grand Games, Violet Orlandi, Crowd, Good Times Bad Times, Nurse, Scott Manley, and I absolutely love this. I usually don't want to get attention from people unless I'm very close with them, but this is the kind of attention I actually really like. Even though this is probably the sign of a very unhealthy parasocial relationship. But anyway, moving on. The last thing I wanted to do in the previous year was make History Scope videos available in audio format as a kind of podcast. I haven't done this at all. I don't really have a good reason for this other than that I decided to just focus on other things instead. But this does bring us neatly to next year's goals, because I still want to make them available in audio format somewhere. So I asked my audio editor to look into that. We'll have an update on that later in the year. But what about the subscriber count we should strive for? Well, seeing as History Scope is going to make a lot more new videos, and it seems to be getting millions of views on a regular basis without making any new videos, I want to set the goal at 1 million subscribers. We probably won't get there, but overly ambitious goals keep me motivated. The third goal is the Discord server. So the Discord server is getting more and more popular. New people are joining almost every day. I'm going to use some of the YouTube money to upgrade the server. It will improve just some small things like allowing people to upload larger files and have more custom emojis and have better streaming for those who are interested. And apparently the server has gotten a lot gayer as well, according to the user Pika, so, you know, I count that as a win. And now some bad news. The Minecraft server is being cancelled. It wasn't popular enough anymore. It was fun while it lasted, but unfortunately people aren't really playing it anymore. We're going to have the world available for download though, so if you were in the server and want to keep playing, you can still do so on your own. I have created a Space Engineer server for History Scope. Over the next year I want to get an admin to manage it for me and maybe a small mod team. It won't matter if it's not very popular though. If just a couple of people are playing on it every month, it's fine. Then every once in a while we can play together for fun. So then on to the major topic, the future of History Scope on YouTube itself. I want to make more videos, preferably one video every week like some of the other large history YouTubers are doing. But how are we going to achieve this? Well, this is my current plan. It might still change a bit in the future, but this is what I currently have in mind. It is going to have teams consisting of 3 to 4 people. Each team will have a researcher, a writer, an animator, and an audio editor. And of course, I will keep doing all the voiceovers. Right now, we have one team consisting of 4 people, with me as the writer. This year, I want to create a second team. The way I will be doing this is to hire someone who can both write and research the topic for me in full time. Together with the animator and audio editor we have now, they will form one team, producing one video every 4 weeks or so. Me and the current researcher will then leave the first team to form a second team, where I will do the writing and animating. Editing the audio doesn't take a lot of time, so the audio editor will be able to work for multiple teams. If there is enough money, I will then hire a second animator for the second team, then a researcher and scriptwriter for the second team. Then once again, this team will be full, and then me and the researcher will go away to form a third team and restart the process. The goal will be to eventually have 4 of these teams, but it will probably take a couple of years before we actually have 4 teams. So in short, the goal is to eventually have one video per week with 4 teams working on the video. By this time next year, I hope we will have 2 teams. And during the hiring process last year for finding an animator, I found 3 good animators, one of which I hired. The other 2 I think are also really good, but I just had to make a choice between 3 good ones in my opinion. So there are 2 people I think I can ask to work with History Scope without needing a long time to find a good fit. So that is the goal in terms of video making. There will also be a smaller goal to limit the amount of depressing videos we're going to make. So History Scope sometimes can get very, very depressing, like with the Nuremberg trial, the Tokyo trial, or the decolonization videos. So I've decided to limit the depressing videos to 1 per 3 videos at most. Because sometimes there are moments when I just had to walk away from the computer because the content that I was watching or reading was just too much for a person to handle. And when you're animating abuse for a whole month, or you're reading about comfort women for a whole month, it does something to your brain. You just become very depressed. And I don't want to do this to myself. I don't want to do this to the researchers. And I don't want to do this to the animators. So we're limiting the amount of depressing topics. Because there are still sometimes moments in my life where I think back to the pictures, videos, and eyewitness accounts from researching those videos that put a severe damper on my mental health. Now that more people are working on these videos, I don't want them to go through something similar, so hence we are limiting the amount of depressing videos to avoid depression. Alright, and then we get to some of the last goals, the more administrative goals. Right now we're using Google Drive as a cloud storage device. The problem with Google Drive is that every person gets 15 gigabytes they can use to store files freely. But when multiple people add files to my drive, it's in their name. This means that if you were to upload animation files to my drive, it counts towards your 15 gigabytes, even though it's on my drive. I have bought 2 terabytes worth of cloud storage, however, we are now limited by the 15 gigabytes that other people have on their free accounts. As far as I know, the only way to get around this is for people to change the ownership of the files from them to me. Meaning that this is extra work people have to do for absolutely no good reason. I am not a sadist. I don't enjoy watching other people suffer, so we'll be switching to a different system that's more reasonable to use. I also want to hire someone to take over various administrative tasks for me. I am autistic, and as a result, a lot of these things are too much for me to handle mentally, and I shut down. So I want to hire someone who does all the miscellaneous administrative tasks, which I either can't or don't want to do. I already have someone in mind for this role, and hopefully that will happen within the next 12 months. And I want to hire an accountant. I don't like doing taxes. In the Netherlands, it's generally very easy to do your taxes because the government already has all the information, and all you need to do is just confirm that this information is correct and maybe add a bit here and there. But once you have your own business, you are the one who has to give the tax agency all the information. I think I've been doing it correctly all this time, but as History Scope grows in size, the chances of me accidentally messing up increases. You might think the government would be forgiving of an honest mistake, but here in the Netherlands, if you ask the government for financial support, but forgot to fill a signature on the document requiring multiple signatures, then you would be classified as a fraudster. So if you've been getting money for a few years and it turned out you forgot just one signature or misspelled a name or made some other honest mistake, then you'd have to pay back everything you received from the government. This could easily be tens of thousands of euros you'd have to repay. Lots of people were unable to afford stuff like going to the dentist, with many of them having to have their teeth pulled because it was cheaper than getting the procedure done. Or Child Protective Services would come around and see that a family no longer has enough money to take care of the children and take them away from the family, whose only crime was that they made a small mistake. So one tiny mistake spiraled into their whole family being torn apart, crippled in debt, and being unable to take care of basic medical needs. When the Prime Minister and his government found out that their laws were being used to harm Dutch citizens, the very people that they are there to serve, they tried to cover it up. And you're just getting the short version here. It goes a lot deeper. I don't want something like this happening to me, so I want to hire an accountant, even if that's probably going to cost a lot of money. But at least I will be able to pay for my medical bills. And lastly, I also want to find a lawyer I can go to regularly. I tried one out last year, and I don't want to go into detail, but it didn't work out at all. Basically, in my opinion, every promise they made was broken. And while I understand that I wasn't as important of a client as other large companies, I think they could have at least just kept the promises that they made. And so I will look for another, more reliable one. The word sloppy came to my mind way too often. So this is the state of the channel in 2022. I will go back to working on a next video about the East Asian decolonization process. And after that will be a video about the rise and fall and rise again of Japan. This was Avery from History Scope. Thank you for watching.